Welcome back to the Heritage Show. I'm your host, Ling. I'm also a burnout and resilience coach and a freediving athlete. Through this podcast, I amplify women's stories of healing, empowerment, and resilience to inspire transformation and positive change. In part 1 of our conversation with Zandile Ndhlovu, South Africa's first Black female freediving instructor, we explored overcoming fear, the power of representation in ocean spaces, and the life lessons from freediving. Today, in part 2, we dive deeper into creativity, storytelling, community, and what we can do to protect our ocean. So let's dive in. Zandile, I couldn't help notice that you're not only very talented in freediving, but also a creative filmmaker and author, that you had a film called The Black Mermaid and also written a book called Zandile Song. Would you like to share more about this, and how did you find inspiration from ocean that fuel your creative outlet?
I would absolutely love to talk about it because I never thought of myself as a creative. So I'd always been headstrong. I've always been strategy. I've always been negotiation. I've always been, and the idea that I could create something artistic felt out of reach. But I think it goes back to the idea that every time you take a step into the fear, your worlds expand. And so I went from being a freediving instructor to working with Discovery Channel, going on incredible missions, looking for sharks all across the world. But then as well, realizing from having worked with a few productions, I said, I feel like my voice is missing. I feel like there are nuances that are missing, and I want to make a film. And that was actually interesting because I'd never made a film before, and there I was. I'd written a story, submitted it. The company came back and said, Zandi, this sounds amazing. Go ahead. Here's the money.
Wow.
And you begin to realize, and I don't know, I'm trying to think who there's a powerful say that I'm thinking about, but maybe I'll share it later. But when you are in the right direction, there's less resistance. So like in the traditional world, we kind of think, oh yes, resistance is good. I've come to realize that there is alignment. And in that alignment, when you are in your purpose, in your flow, somehow the resistance is less and less. And and so I got to make this incredible film. The film was the most watched film on the platform for the year that followed.
Wow.
It was the most watched short film, and it was the 4th most watched film of all the films that are on the platform. And it's on a platform called Waterbear. And now I'm realizing how much more I want to keep telling those stories. How do I keep telling those stories that talk to our connectedness with water? And then later, a publisher reached out to me, Pan Macmillan, and they said, hi, Zandi, do you have a story that you want to tell? I was like, I have thousands. And it's again just the journey of walking with the water. And Zandi's Song is a children's book that is for children between the ages of 6 and 10 to 11. It just depends on where your child is. But it's semi-autobiographical, someone who didn't grow up anywhere near the sea. She goes on this journey with the sea, and she witnesses her beautiful life, but then she also begins to witness plastic underwater. And so it's teaching children the space of learning and literacy, but the beauty of the ocean, conservation perspective, and then the plastic. How do we protect our oceans? And that book has, of course, done absolutely incredibly well. Launched in South Africa, an amazing uptake. Launched in the US in March this year. We were a bestseller in our first week on Amazon. And now it is in Brazil, and it's been translated into Portuguese. And so through this journey, I'm just realizing that the power of our stories is what creates that connection. It's in our vulnerability when we're sharing our stories and we're putting out our truth. Everything
Amazing.
comes.
Yes. The storytelling, it's so inspiring because I totally can relate to this. As you mentioned, when you tell your true story, when you are not afraid of being vulnerable, when you find that connection deeply within us, and this can create such an impact to people around the world as you just achieved. So I'm really curious about this storytelling part. Nowadays, everything is about storytelling, from personal branding, marketing, finding new connection. And we often struggle to tell a story in a very authentic, intriguing way. And as you said, you never thought you are a creative person, but you actually had created such amazing film and books. So how could our audience actually start to practice storytelling? What are the key components there can make a storytelling so touching?
Oh, wow. I would say, I think imagination is a powerful thing. And so to continuously foster the space of imagination, the older we get, the more we lose our ability to imagine powerfully. And I think
Yeah,
that's the thing about reading. When you pick up a book, I love fictional books. When you pick up a book and you read, you get transported somewhere else. And if you can allow yourself to go to the places that the book is, you're able to come back as a newly traveled reader. So that
yeah,
for me is always it's how I approach everything. I approach it with, I write with my heart. I write with the hope that someone can go to that place in their head and then come back. So I think for me, it's just the idea of write, write and write and write. But I think the more you are in, I don't want to, there's no way of saying it. The system can be quite rigid, but the more you're in the system, the more you think, oh, this is ridiculous. Oh, this is ridiculous. The more ridiculous, the better. Like the
yeah,
more ridiculous, the better. If you are embarrassed when you're reading it, you should love it. Because in a world that tells us how we should be, how we should behave, how we should show up, writing is the freedom of letting your heart run free, live in the
yeah,
world in the way that you most hope. And I think
yeah,
that's powerful.
yeah. The part of self-expression using writing, it's so life-changing, I think, for me as well. As you mentioned, um, even if you think it's not perfect, no one would read it, no one would care, but you'd be surprised, right? Like, I also start to write more in the last years. In the beginning, I felt very embarrassed. I don't dare to, write a blog or maybe write a LinkedIn post. Now I love it. Every day I wake up, the first thing I do is write, is create. It gives me so much joy and connection. And I feel there's so many things, thoughts, ideas, wisdom inside I want to express. I want to let the world know. Of course, it's not perfect, but I think that uh, willingness and the desire to express the authenticity matters a lot more than being perfect about the writing. And I love that you mentioned about the imagination. I use visualization and image work a lot in my coaching practice. I do this to myself as well for like creating a vision board or guiding my clients through a vision setting. And maybe it's related to the imagination work you talked about. So I really want to touch upon these components about using our imagination, our mind, our visual ability to help us achieve our goal. our ideal self or future. Have you utilized those technique or method in your freediving training, perhaps in your life?
Number one, I'm so curious to know how you do it in your practice. I'd love to know. But for me, in my freediving, it is first settling in self. So I haven't done like deep visualizations, but I think from an imagination perspective, it's from being a child. I loved to read as a child. I consumed books. And the reason was, sometimes you grow up in a harder world. And for me, I could step into any book and I could be anywhere. And that was the powerful thing. And when I got out of the book to come back to my everyday life, it's like, oh, okay. But it was a place in which I could leave the present. And so, and I see it even today, like when I make a vision board, it's been interesting because then you'll have someone who's guiding you. I've always had someone guiding me. And I have to be led into the vision board space. So curious to know how you do it. But from a heart perspective, right here, they just talk to each other. Like I can see it, I can go there, I can touch it, I can see all parts. And I mean, when you think of the foundation, it's solidly sitting on that. This is what I want to do. See it happening. Great. Connect.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the visualization part, the image work that I use in my practice with my clients, often there is a connection between our mind and heart in a very subtle, underlying kind of a very mystical way of playing out. Because when we talk about visualization, often we said, it's in our head, in our mind, but it actually activates so much wisdom and insight from our body, because usually I will get my clients through a deep relaxation to start with. So they already start to be very in tune with their body. And also I would suggest them to feel and to use their body more instead of their head. So what comes up is a lot of unconscious ideas, metaphors, image, or perhaps even not image, could be a sound, a book, a text, or a memory that brings so much healing into the process. So I can relate to what you mentioned also about the part that you talk about reading more, that can help us cultivate this ability to make up stories, image, personality, and to perhaps even experience it ourselves.
Yeah.
I think maybe grow up, being a Chinese that needs to spend most of my time doing hardcore study.
Yeah.
I didn't really have the opportunity to read a lot of fiction books. That's definitely a component that I felt missing in my life, that I would love to read more fiction books, as you said, to really go to different universe, time, space, experience multi-dimensional other lives, other beings. So love that. Thank you so much for this.
Pleasure.
And again, on the storytelling part, I love that how you start to pursue this creative side of you. And I found a lot of us, including myself, lost touch within our creative souls. I was young, I was performing on the stage, I was singing, I was dancing, I was a little star in my city. I love the feeling of standing on the stage, being seen, being heard, being praised for, and this moment of feeling alive. And yet it's time, because I had to pursue, academically successful career. And I just stopped doing all of this. And only in recent years, I start to, reconnect of this desire of going to the stage, dance and sing, also a little bit public speaking. So my question is, how can we start to return and rediscover our creative souls and kind of let it out, let it flourish?
Such a good question. My heart says play. I think powerful way to do absolutely everything.
Yeah.
I think of, like you said you were in your head with your freediving and you weren't advancing, and your friend said, "Come, let's go and play." When I'm in the water, when I was stuck at 23 meters, the only way that I could bridge that was I started diving without my computer, no measures, allow my body to feel for itself, to know where it is, because we love data. We're addicted to data. But all of a sudden, I could just play, dive down. I have no idea how far I've gone. My only indicator is my body's ability to communicate with me. And then you can still push some more and push some more. And then a little bit later, you're like, oh my word, that was a long dive. And somebody's like, then you were under there for 2 minutes. And I'm like, I didn't realize. But I think play is a powerful way to touch ourselves, to touch our younger selves, to remember what lit us up and what continues to light us up, because the older we get, we become more linear in thought. But I think play is a powerful way to touch and open up ourselves, because you're silly and you're laughing like a child and you're rolling on the floor and you're doing cartwheels because you can. And all of a sudden, you don't have to belong to one way of doing things. And I think that opens up.
Totally. I love that you highlighted the word play. Yeah, it's so true, and it's so hard to cultivate that part of us, to just enjoy and just have fun instead of looking at outcome, the goals or result, achievement. I had recently also worked with myself for imagery work, where see myself as a dolphin. I was trapped in a aquarium, doing performance just to make people laugh, and this really much reminded myself as a kid that I only need to perform, and to make others happy. That's my worth, lays at. But then I actually realized there was no lock in the aquarium. I could go out to the vast ocean, and what I need is to play, with my fellow dolphin friends and to enjoy this freedom, this blue, and just have fun. And this is such a powerful message to myself. As you said, that's the whole point. Sometimes I think that's the whole point of life, is to play, is to be in this very present moment. So, yeah.
Yes, we are so socialized in how we grow up into how we should be and how we should show up in society. But honestly, if I think of how I create and how I show up in the world, it is always the weird Zandi that has always created the worlds. Like, I've always hoped to fit in, but so many years later, the gift was always not fitting in. And you can go and play with the other kids, and you will never be everything that the other kids are. But it doesn't mean you can't share space and love and play and be and show your weirdness. And in place and in the right tribe, you'll be encouraged in whatever it is that you are. And that's where you find your strength. I believe it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, totally. The part of being yourself, being your authentic self. And really key, as you said, find your tribe, find the community that sees you, that accepts you, that praise you, love you, support you for however you are, truly how you are. And such a gift And I think oftentimes it can be challenging in this world to find this community, but it's so essential because the other day I was on a retreat. We're talking about the third place, which is the first place is your family, right? Your spouse, your parents, your kids, maybe even your friends. And the second part is your workplace, your career, your job. And then the third place is the community, the people you feel connected to, share similar hobby, community that kind of brings you in as their kind of extended family. So on the community topic, how do you go about finding it and sustaining your connection with community, getting the support, but also giving back?
That's such a hard one. And it's not really hard from the beginning part, because how do you find community? You show up. And, showing up is such a powerful thing because it can be so difficult. Some people are introverted, right? So it's showing up and trying. And for me, I've always said, I'm not afraid of people.
Yeah, that's
Be
important.
I can be anywhere in the world. And I will say, hi, can I join you? Is that all right? And someone's like, of course, because people are also open. We shut ourselves out. Like you said in your vision, you were in an aquarium, but the door wasn't locked. We lock ourselves in our head.
Right.
And so for me, finding community is showing up. Hi, my name is, and you continuously show up. And the question of how you give and how they give. And I think that is something that comes with time. You build relationship, and from you're able to ascertain what you're able to give and what you can't give. And we live in a world that feels so indebted in the barter system that relationship is not about bartering. It's not, I was here for you yesterday, what are you going to do for me tomorrow? It's a continuous hope to live in this hub of relation. I'm out of the country for over half of the year, and how my friends show up for me and how I show up for them will never look like any other way. Half the time it's 1 a.m. I'm calling back. People are sleeping. Are you okay? And I think for me, it's building communities, showing up, but building the relationship is that vulnerability that says, I'll never be perfect. We're not in our 20s. I'm not available at the drop of a hat, but I'm here.
Yeah.
And the here is it varies. And whether you are battling in your free dive, or you're battling at work, or you're battling with other things in life, it's that hope that when I do show up, there's space and grace for me to not be perfect, because I could never be perfect. But in trying, you are able to see my love.
Yeah. The awareness of we are all connected. We all have our, let's say, weak point. We are not perfect, but we all have our shared desire to belong, to contribute, to feel fulfillment. And also at times when we are maybe hitting the rock bottom and there is a, hand, there is a shoulder for us to lean on. So that's really, really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And then again, I want to go back to freediving because I had an incident last year. During one of my freediving training, I had a moment of real possibility of facing death. Was really terrifying moment, and it really profoundly changed my view to my life, to world, to my life path. I look back now thinking that's a traumatic experience, but at the same time, it was a wake up call for me to make drastic change in my life in so many ways. And since then, I quit my corporate job. I started to pursue my coaching business, and I launched my podcast. And I just couldn't help wondering, how do you deal with this real possibility of death? Because freediving is extreme sports. It has a high mortality rate. And as much as, of course, we always practice safety measure, we always have a body and all of this prevention steps, ocean sometimes can be unforgivable. So how do you deal with this fear and possibility of your own mortality?
Wow, that's a question. I find myself continuously in gratitude for the here and now. I say to my sister, so I'm very, very close to my sister, and I always say to her, if anything had to happen, I want you to know that there would never be any other place that I'd want to be but in the water. And I think we place freediving as this one extreme, but every day when you leave home, you are susceptible to anything that could have ever happened. It's not, and yes, you're in the water, maybe it increases the likelihood of one event. But I always say to leave home every day is to leave with a jug full of hope that you're going to make it back home to. And the entitled idea that we ever own any one part of our lives is just, I can't fathom that. So for me, it is always day to day. It is to tell the people that I love them daily, to show up with my nieces, to call them and make sure that they're okay. They're growing up, they're liking boys, they're liking all of these things. And because I spend so much of my time away from them, it is the continuous presence in the moment to call and say, what's happening? Tell me what's new. And I find myself not in the fear of death, but I find myself in the fear of not having lived fully. And so I find myself continuously saying, how are you feeling? Are you happy? What do we need to change? If you could do anything differently, what would you do? Because I realize that life is not a given, not to anybody. And to be able to do what we do in the time that we have, that's the gift. That's always been the gift.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's very profound on this reflection. I totally with you on the point of gratitude of sending loving kindness, compassion to ourselves, to people we love, perhaps even to people that has wronged us, hurt us, and essentially to every sentient being. This is the practice I also often do, like a loving kindness meditation that I also share with my clients. It's so healing, and it helps us appreciate every single moment we are having, even not knowing what's going to happen the next second. So thank you again for reminding us how important is it to be grateful for what we have. And again, to the freediving topic, any other moment that was beautiful, magical, profound for you that you like to share with us, perhaps could inspire more people to go to the sea and explore some newly found beauty of the ocean?
One of the memories that I'll never forget was the first day that I hit 20 meters. I was so afraid, and there were so many things going on. And the water on the surface was just, it was windy, it was crazy, but it was not fantastic. But I remember taking that breath, and as I dived down, few kicks, equalize, and I just hear whale song. Like the whales are singing all around me. And for the first time, I go past 13 meters and I'm just going. And then out of nowhere, I just feel that pink. So my lanyard, it means I'm at the bottom. It means I'm at 20
Yeah.
meters. And in the water, I hear our safety. She was on scuba and she's like, yes. And I'm just like, that will forever live in my memory. And as I, had that panic that follows, oh my word, I'm at 20 meters. Now I must get back. But what followed was the whale song. It felt like it was an usher back to the surface with me. I was not alone.
Yeah.
And that day when we finished our session, it was probably 2 to 3 hours. As the scuba diver gets out of the water, we just start seeing like these blowholes all around us.
Wow.
And all of these whales come to investigate what is going on. And it was the most special day. And we were just laughing in the rain and the wind, and the whales are having the time of their lives. I always will say, freediving for me is the idea that you show up with everything you have in this life, that one breath, and every single moment you get an infinite amount back, just like the whale song, the whales that surround it, and that continuous rebirth. It's powerful.
Yeah, the rebirth. The rebirth. Yeah, I feel you. I can feel my heart is with you at that moment. Hear the whales whispering and feel the waters touching your skin and giving you a warm hug. And I think this is such a undescribable experience. And those are the moments that you feel the interconnectivity between us with other human, with other being, with the nature. And this really touched me in a way of thinking that how we have wronged our ocean. We have done so much damage to this beautiful, nurturing motherhood to us in so many ways. So I'm just wondering, from your perspective as a ocean advocate, marine conservationist, what can we do to support, to give back, to protect our ocean?
That's such a beautiful question. I think for me, overfishing is a massive issue. So know what you're eating, look it up. So there's this amazing Sassy app that tells you what fish is abundant and what fish isn't, what fish is endangered.
What's the name of the app?
It's called WWF Sassy, SASSI. And so then when you eat at a restaurant, you can ask, what fish is this? And then you can make a selection based off the knowing that it is in abundance. I think that's one. Two, plastic. We always talk about reduce, reuse, recycle. But more than that, how do we show up intentionally? How do we make sure that we can protect the future by our everyday actions, realizing that even the clothing that we wear, oh, there we go, save the ocean.
The ocean. Amazing. See, shepherd. Ah, love it. Can I get that shirt somewhere?
Where did I find it? I actually do not even know where I found it. But when I think about plastic, it is to also remember that the clothing that we wear, especially like when you think of your yoga clothing, so much of it comes from fossil fuel products. So how do we choose differently? How do we just be intentional with the materials that we use, the products that we drink out of, just intentionality on all parts. And most importantly, I think of our gardens. And so when we water our gardens with all of the chemicals that we place in our gardens to make sure that the birds don't eat everything or the ants don't eat everything, all of that runs back into our water. Can we find cleaner sources to help fertilize and help grow our gardens? Because that water going into the sea, it creates new challenges for the marine life that lives in there.
Yeah, totally. There's small things we can do. The key, as you mentioned, is about making effort to live a conscious lifestyle, setting intentions, even just small change could make a difference. Because if everyone take a small action, that will have massive impact. So thank you so much for sharing. It's really practical. Zandile, we've talked so many topics about freediving, ocean conservation, about conquering fear, about finding your heart calling, about storytelling. So many amazing stories, and I love it. I really don't want to end our conversation. I really hope we had another opportunity to meet in person. But before we end it, I'm really curious to hear what are some of those exciting projects that you're working on and how people can actually find and connect with you.
Thank you so much for that question. So the foundation is growing. We want to introduce swimming. We are introducing swimming in 2025. So if you're looking for us, you can find us at blackmermaid.co.za. We're actually upgrading our website, but let's use that one for now. And on Instagram and all social media, you can find me at Zandile the Mermaid. If you are able to support us with funding or if it's equipment, find us, partner our work. Partnership is the way of the future, and that is the future. It is more storytelling, more ways of finding connection to ensure that little people know that these oceans are theirs too, and they have the power to protect them.
Yeah, amazing. I'll leave all your contact in our show note caption. And please support Zandile and for her initiative. This is the time for us to be intentionally giving back and contributing to the ocean conservation and allowing more people to have the access and the connection with our beautiful blue ocean. Thank you so much, Zandile. I'm eternally grateful for you to be here with me and to share so much wisdom and insight to inspire our audience. And I can't wait to meet you in the blue. And I hope you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Ling. It's been absolutely incredible. And I have no doubt, none whatsoever, that we'll meet in the beautiful blues soon.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this special 2-part conversation with Zandile Ndhlovu. Her story reminds us that courage, creativity, and connection have the power to shape not only our lives, but also the world around us. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear those stories. Every share helps amplify voices like Zandile's, and together we can inspire changes. And don't forget to subscribe to The Heritage Show on your favorite platforms, so you don't miss upcoming episodes featuring incredible women making waves in their communities. Leave a comment and let me know who else would you like me to invite to the show. Thank you. Until next time.